Well, hello, folks. We are now in episode 2 of Word to the Wireless, and episode 1 was the longer version, longer than I really wanted it to be. So I'm going to go over the same thing because I've had a lot of people ask me about this, and I don't want to spend a lot of time in this particular episode explaining how Wi Fi works. I just want to get right to the point and show you what you need to do. So, without further ado, why is my Wi-Fi slow? One of the things that usually happens with new routers and people install new routers is that they forget that the band steering is part of the system, and band steering will actually get you in trouble with newer devices if you leave it on. And let me explain why it was there to begin with. The idea was that with band steering, you have two bands in a dual band router, 2.4 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz. And as you got out of range of the 5 gigahertz band, the router would help the device, help it along, and make it decide or help it decide which channel to go on. If you had a newer device, it would go for 5 gigahertz when you were nearby, but as you get further away and the signal's getting weaker, it will have you go to the 2.4 gigahertz frequency. That's in the large part up to the device. The problem is the devices are not all the same. And when your device decides to go to 2.4 gigahertz, things start to slow down because the 2 gigahertz or 2.4 gigahertz band does not really have higher speeds because its channel width is only 20 megahertz, whereas on a 5 gigahertz band, its channel width could be 20, 40, 80 megahertz is pretty common nowadays, and now we're starting to see devices come out with 160 megahertz, which will make it a lot faster. However, as you get further away from the router, the phone, your smartphone or tablet, may decide that it cannot support the 5 gigahertz band. It might be able to, but it makes a decision. At some point, there's a threshold, and it says, nope, we're going to switch you over to 2.4 gigahertz, and that's all she wrote. So, band steering between the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz is something that was developed to make things easier for the end user. But for more advanced users, it actually became more of a pain in the butt. Because here you are in an area where you're pretty sure the 5 gigahertz would work. Yes, it's not going to be as strong as it was when you were standing in the same room as that particular router, but it's not going to be so bad that it's going to be affected by distance so badly that it's going to be slower than the 2.4 gigahertz band. The 2.4 gigahertz band may be stronger, and that's the one thing about 2.4 gigahertz is that the band itself, the 2.4 gigahertz band you'll see in here, there's a few things about it. And one of the main things is that it's slower speed, but it's got better range. That was the advantage. Disadvantage, not too many channels. They step on each other, a lot of interference, which causes it to be even slower. Now, 5 gigahertz, when it was developed, they said, oh, great, we're now going to have 24 non-overlapping channels that are 20 megahertz wide. And you can do the math real quick and go, well, okay, 20 megahertz channels times 24, that's 480 megahertz. But we have 800 something megahertz available. Why don't we have as much? Well, there's certain channels in the middle called DFS that really don't want to be on. They're regulated by the federal government, and you don't go on them unless you want to get kicked off them, is what the short version is. And that's a longer story to talk about. But the nice thing about it is that now you could bond multiple channels, 2 of them to grade 40, 4 of them to grade 80, and so forth down the line to create wider channels that gets you faster speeds. And now with that, band steering became important. If you were close by and you were on a 2.4 gigahertz channel, you would sit there and go, well, why is it so slow? I'm standing right next to the router. Well, band steering would help you move over to the 5 gigahertz. But by the same token, when you get further away, if the band steering decides to route you to 2.4 because the signal's stronger, all of a sudden it's going to be a lot slower. And you're going to be going, wait a minute, I can still see the 5 gigahertz. You bring up your other device and go, yeah, there it is. And here is the push. The device is trying to decide that for you. So what I want to really point out to you is that you can make this a choice that you have. Band steering, because of the way it works, does not always work the way you want it to because of the shorter range of 5 gigahertz. Even though it could be as fast, if not faster than 2.4 gigahertz at that range, the devices are deciding no, signal's too weak. So, easy solution. When you're using band steering, there's only one name. Let's call it ABC Wi-Fi. On ABC Wi-Fi, it is going to be either 2.4 or 5 gigahertz. It's really up to the band steering capabilities of your phone and the router. Okay, but if we were to name both of them ABC Wi-Fi 2 gigahertz and then name the other one ABC Wi-Fi 5 gigahertz, or any other name you want to be able to tell the difference, whether you call it 2.4 IoT and the 5 gigahertz, you call it NOT, whatever it is, so long as you have two different names. Well, now that you have two different names programmed in there, and by the way, you can have the same password for either one, you can now have your phone log into either the 5 gigahertz or the 2.4 gigahertz. Let's say the 5 gigahertz, because that's kind of the aim of all this. And you will be able to hold on to that for as long as you can still hold on to signal. At a certain point, it's going to give up. There's not enough bandwidth there. It's just not going to work. And then if you also have the 2.4 in your list, in your priority list, and you have it, say, one down from the 5 gigahertz channel, it will log into the 2.4. And at that point, you might get a slow speed, but at least you have something rather than nothing. And that was the whole idea of band steering, is to do this automatically. But in most cases, I found you're better off setting it up and choosing it manually instead of the devices trying to choose it for you automatically. So essentially, that's it. If you have any questions or comments, just leave them and I will get back with you. But my opinion is band steering is great for the beginner user or the user who really doesn't want to try and guess what's going on, but it can also frustrate them to no end because they will be complaining that how come my internet is so slow when I get back to this third bedroom in a ranch style home or upstairs, whereas when I'm close to it, it's really fast. And the difference could be dramatic. For instance, here in my place, I typically see 500 megabits on the 5 gigahertz band, and I have that on an 80 megahertz channel. And when I'm on the 2.4, it ironically drops down to about 5 megabits or less. And that's due to all the interference, really. And that's another topic for another word to the wireless. But there's a lot of issues that are happening in the 5 gigahertz band that can cause it to be slow, other than distance and just the inherent nature of the 2.4 gigahertz band. Excuse me. So anyway, that's it for now. Thank you for viewing, and I hope to see you again on another Word to the Wireless.